Hi, it's Kate, your friendly neighborhood shit poster, and apparently the only person left on this planet who doesn't have a podcast. So let's remedy that, said no one ever. So I'm here with Mom. She's eating pretzels right now. Take a sip of pop and say hi.
Hello, all.
So we are doing this little reread project here. I noticed after the season ended, there was actually quite a lot of people who wanted to reread the books just to get the stank of the show out of their mouths. And both of us have read the books once all the way through. And that was a while ago, so it's a good time for a reread. So I figured, hey, let's do a really low-budge podcast where we discuss it and argue about it and all that kind of good stuff. So I was thinking of calling it something like the Crone's Lantern, which...
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Well, like the crone from like the Faith of the Seven. Mm-hmm. Wise old women.
As we are.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That might be overselling it a bit, but but yeah, that's something I'm kind of playing with. So just so everybody knows, this is gonna be like super low budget to start because I don't really have any good editing software anymore, except for iMovie, which is garbage. So at least for the first few of these, it's just gonna be us talking and like maybe like a picture, which you might be seeing right now, of the first book. I might try to get fancy later on as this goes, but we'll see. Anyway, so we're rereading the books, which was actually your idea, because you told me that you wanted to reread them. So why did you want to reread them?
Well, after reading the books and seeing the series, which my sister had bought some of the DVDs,
yeah,
so we could watch it, and her and I kept saying, oh, did that happen in the books? Did that happen in the books? And Kate always said, no. So that was my inspiration to read the books.
But why do you want to reread them? Because
it
took you a while. It took you a while to read them the first time.
Right. Well, the reason I want to reread them is because now that I kind of gotten a more of a clarification on the characters, and I can I told Kate, I said, if I can, now I have faces. And
yeah, but you have the show faces.
Yeah,
though.
Yeah, but I realized that they're not exactly what they were in the books.
Right.
You know, they don't really they sort of look like them.
Yeah.
But now I can do a little relate to the characters.
Yeah.
And so I get actually I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Because now I'm not going to be so lost. Not that you're lost when you first read the books, but there's George introduces so many characters. Mm-hmm. And actually in the books I found that some of the characters they're good for the moment, but you don't really see them again.
Right.
And but it adds like
flavor.
Yeah. Flavor's a good word. To an ambiance to the scene.
Yeah.
And of course I love his writing. It's just incredible. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm looking forward to also, because he can draw such a beautiful picture with words.
Yes. Especially the food chapters.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to reading them again.
Well, the thing I noticed when I first read the books, after having watched the show first, is that it's a lot easier to kind of look for things, because when you know what's going to happen, you can kind of look for those little clues and everything as you're reading it. So I think having hindsight is really helpful, not just reading it for the first time, but reading it again and being like, oh, that ties into that, like what you were saying with like the characters who just kind of come and go. But down the line, whatever situation they were brought in for can have, like, if they're brought in book one, like 4 books later, it comes back and you're like, oh, okay, now I see what the point of that was, you know, like with Jane Poole, you know.
Right, which I was totally confused about because of how they sent Sansa to the Vale, or to back to Winterfell, and it wasn't Sansa.
Right.
So I mean, that's just a one thing.
Right.
You know, that I'm kind of looking forward to reading the books again to see exactly what George intended rather than what the series showed us.
Right. So are there any like specific characters or events or chapters that you're looking forward to reading again?
All of them. I mean, we'll just start at the beginning. I think that's, you know.
Well, because I remember the other day you mentioned that you were afraid that you wouldn't like Tyrion anymore just because of the show. For those of you who don't know, Mom is like the biggest Tyrion stan there is, but even she, like around like by season 7, every time he came on the screen, she was like, oh. And she would literally leave the room when he came on screen, which I have been doing anyway. But
yeah, because in the book I had you know, George portrayed him a lot differently.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, like than they did in the series. So I think that's why I kind of had a sympathy. Maybe it was like a sympathy for him, so he became like one of my favorite characters.
I mean, he's interesting to read, but at the same time, like it's funny though that
you can argue about it later.
I know, but I'm just saying, that it's interesting that you would like him more in the book, because in the book he's so much more unlikable than on the show, where they just, you know, in the book he's so gray, on the show he's just white.
Yeah.
And then like in the last 3 seasons he wasn't even white, he was like opaque. So
yeah, but you got a lot more, I think, in the book. I mean, we can talk about more of this later, but in the books you can kind of see where he came from,
right,
and why he is the way he is. And that actually you see that in all the characters, like the Hound, you know, Sandor. Even though he seems kind of cruel and whatever, because of his upbringing and all the things that happened to him and whatever, you kind of have a sympathy for him, or he becomes a favorite character because of you can, not that you can relate to him personally, but you can relate to, you know, what he's been through.
Right.
I mean, and I have found that with George has written all his characters, there's something in their background or in their past that has a profound effect on how he develops their character arc.
Right. That's the brilliance of George, is he's like, oh, you think you know this character? Well, here you go. The only exception, of course, is with Cersei. Like, literally, like, once you get to her chapters in Feast for Crows, you're like, oh, that's pretty much exactly what I assumed. So, but yeah, so many other characters, like you brought up Sandor, like when he's introduced, you're like, what is, and he's not even a POV character, but through his interactions with Sansa and Arya, you begin to learn more about, you know, the deeper aspects of him.
Right, but I see that in all the characters.
Right.
I mean, I see how George develops them, and he doesn't just throw a character at you, especially a main character.
Yeah.
I mean, he gives you, eventually, he weaves their background. I don't know if that's the expression he used, so that the character that he develops is like full blown, and it's you can see, and you can almost anticipate how they're going to react to things.
Right, and he can do that just in the space of one chapter, like the epilogue for Storm of Swords, which is told from Merritt Frey's point of view. Obviously, that chapter is used to introduce Lady Stoneheart, but by the end of that chapter, you know Merritt Frey's entire freaking life story. You know exactly who this person is, and that's one chapter.
And it's not boring.
Exactly.
He writes so well. And I just want to throw this out there, too, because we don't want to keep this way too long, like you said. But when we interacted with him at the Queen Mary,
woohoo!
And he was signing books, and eventually he even took pictures with Kate and a couple of her friends, you know, that were dressed. And he's just such a gentle, sweet man. I mean, I was just, you wouldn't expect that from somebody who writes so intensely and whatever. But he's just a sweet, gentle I'm only going to say lovable person.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of a eye-opener for me, even though I'd seen pictures of him in interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
But I had to throw that out there because it was just so cool.
Well, since we're on the subject of George, it's funny to think he started writing this in the early 90s. He actually wrote a preliminary outline that he sent to a publishing company so that he could get a publishing deal for A Song of Ice and Fire. At the time, only thinking it was just going to be one book. So he got the publishing deal, and afterwards he completely threw out that outline, and it it's gone out publicly since then, and it's just filled with just the most ridiculous crap. Like Sansa marries Joffrey and ends up having his kid, and Jon and Arya end up hooking up. It's ridiculous. And but I'll be damned if people don't still take out that damn outline to prove their theories of how A Song of Ice and Fire is gonna end. And it's no, literally, I'll have.
He's even saying that.
Well, yeah.
He says he doesn't even know what he's going to write until he sits down and does it.
Right, exactly.
So I don't think he's following any kind of outline anymore. I think he's just going to go with his soul or heart or whatever.
Well, he's definitely a Gardner writer. I think he has, and I think he knows what the end game is going to be. It's just he doesn't quite know how he's going to get there, and that might change in the interim.
Right, and I believe that.
Right.
I believe it's going to change the whole thing.
Well, we may never know, but yeah, I've had so many conversations with people where we're having a discussion about what's going to happen in the books, and they'll be like, oh, well, according to his outline, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there because it has nothing to do with anything. Base your theories on published text. Right. Let the friggin' outline die, please. This has been a PSA. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, but it gives them something to talk about. So I think at least they're still involved and still, part of the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's fun to look back on to see those early origins, but to think that it has any bearing whatsoever on the end game of A Song of Ice and Fire is dumb. So y'all need to stop. But anyway, Game of Thrones was published in 1996, and it's weird to think now how I was the same age as John and Rob when the first book came out, and by the time the next book comes out, I will be older than Ned and Stannis, or by the time it comes out, I'll be the same age as Old Man, or Aemon.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
So for that.
What?
No, I think we should maybe wrap it
up. Mom wants to wrap it up.
Well, we don't want to bore them. We'll have more to say later.
I mean, whatever. But anyway, so talking a little bit more about George, he was asked once who his 3 favorite characters are. Can you guess who they were?
Can I guess who they are?
Yeah. No, the cat.
His 3 favorite characters are probably the Hound.
Nope.
No.
They're all, I'll give you a hint, they're all POV characters.
POD?
POV.
Oh, point O. Oh, that would be Sansa.
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Because they have the Sansa's chapters, they have the... They don't have Hound chapters.
No.
God, it's been so long.
Well, I mean, there are 3 main characters.
Tyrion.
Yes, that's one.
Yeah, Tyrion, because I know they have the Tyrion chapters. Mm-hmm. They have the...
Sansa was close.
Yeah, because they do have Sansa chapters.
No, they do, but Sansa wasn't the one he named, but that was close.
Oh, okay.
So, what would be close to Sansa?
Arya?
Yes,
oh, Arya.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the third...
Okay, can't be Catelyn. Can't be Ned.
It's a female.
Would it be Cersei?
No. Actually, George says he needs to take a cold shower every time he writes a Cersei chapter.
And for female?
It's a female. She's one of the main characters. And people were really mad about what they did to her on the show. I know that doesn't...
Did I say Catelyn?
No.
Oh. Oh, that's terrible. I can't think. Give me a hint.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a hint that won't completely give it away. Oh.
Oh, Danny. Danny.
For those of you who can't see this, my hint was I tweaked my own nipple.
My bratty brother did.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, those are his 3 faves that he named. Tyrion, Arya, and Daenerys. But like you said earlier, I think he has a very, very deep fondness for all the characters.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that you named. In fact, when you mentioned Sansa, it reminded me, like a couple weeks ago, he posted on Twitter a photo of his wife from when they first met in like the 70s or something, and she had like this long, like, red hair. And I was like, oh, please tell me that you based Sansa off of your wife.
Oh, that'd be cute.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think Sansa's off Beauty and the Beast, too.
Of course.
That's a whole nother story.
Of course. One of several Beauty and the Beast motifs that he uses, but that's the most obvious one, of course. So, yeah. So we'll wrap this up, just so we don't go over the 20-minute mark, and you people are probably asleep now. So yeah, this is going to be interesting.
I'm just going to be fun. Because we've talked through the whole time I was reading the books, when I was watching the series. I mean, Kate and I definitely had some really fun conversations.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And arguments.
Especially about Tyrion. That won't change. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what we pick up on the second time around, like you said, with hindsight and everything.
And for those of you who haven't read the books, if you're listening to this, why don't you go ahead and read along with us?
Yes, please do.
And that'll be fun. Yeah. And how many? We're gonna do one for every chapter. Is that what you want to do?
Just to keep it short. I think that would.
Yeah. So we're gonna do Game of Thrones, and we'll do the prologue.
Yeah, so next one will be the prologue.
Which is really eye-opening to me now.
Mom went ahead and read ahead of me, so you're gonna have to wait till I get there, because I still need to finish Fire and Blood, for crying out loud. It's taken me like a year to read that. So stay tuned.
Feedback. If you want to hear more, or you want to read along with us, and that'll be a lot of fun.
Let us know if there's any specific things you want us to discuss as we go through the chapters, and we will go from there, and hopefully it'll get better. And Mom will keep chomping on her pretzels. We should do like an ASMR episode one day. That'd be... He took a song and a kiss and left me nothing but a bloody cloak. Anyway, so yeah. So thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, congratulations, without, falling into a coma or whatever. And stay tuned for the next one.
Feedback.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.